Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna break down the Bad Batch trailer for season three.
The
All of us,
final season.
the final season. We all have lots to say about it, so let's dive right in. Typically, we in the past have, walked through the trailer or the episode and discussed it. We're kind of more gonna pick out points that we want to talk about, and go from there. So, we might as well start at the beginning of the trailer though, with the turbo tank on the cliff. Um, pretty cinematic, pretty climactic. But Jake, what did we just learn about?
Bro, I wasn't going to talk about this part. Talking to Lucas and Jason, Jason sent us a YouTube video the other day, and apparently you can see Crosshair in the back of the turbo tank with Hunter and Wrecker, which is pretty crazy. So, again, not a detail you see in your first watch, probably not in your second watch. I had to like slow it down to like 0.25 speed and watch it through to see him. But to kick things off, we have Crosshair with the Bad Batch in the trailer, which is pretty sick. Not gonna lie.
Well, and,
I don't
and it
know.
makes you wonder too that like is the turbo tank scene the first episode? Because it can't if Crosshair's actually in it, it's not probably going to be the first episode unless it's a flashback of some sort.
Oh, that's true. I guess I didn't think about that. It definitely could be a flashback. Well,
Yeah,
actually,
but I
it does
mean,
have it has the pilot treasure hunter chick in it as
that's
well.
true.
So unless they like cut that from a later scene into this one, it would appear that that's not, a flashback, but it
that's
could
true.
be,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't meet her. I think her name's Fee or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
they didn't meet Fee until they like linked up with Sid. They started doing stuff with Sid's bounties and stuff, and so yeah, I mean that's an interesting part because that's something we've been wishing and since the honestly since the end of season one and beginning of season two. It's like we need more Crosshair. When is Crosshair going to come back and either bull with the boys again or fight them, right? And it's cool. So it's I mean I'm glad that they were able to kind of like get back together. So hopefully that will be a plot point that we see early on in the season rather than it being like a end of the season thing, right? Because it'd be kind of
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy to think that we have yet to really even see anything of all five of them together in the Bad Batch show? Like it's
yeah,
And
literally
now,
the training. That's all it was the training and intro. And by that time, Crosshair was already like programmed. His chip was already rewired.
yeah,
well, and the tough thing is we won't even get them all together because Echo's gone, or not Echo, Tech's gone, you know?
Yeah,
So
rip.
we won't even get the five of them together. We're going to get the four of them together, right? Which,
yeah.
Rip Tech, our boy,
Lucas,
some
you're
people
sad
saying
about
he's
Tech, right?
I'm so sad about Tech, as
All
we've
right, just
established in the previous episodes. Yeah, garbage.
did you feel bad for Clone Force 99 with his loss, or were you kind of just like, like they'll shake it off, like kind of
Well,
thing?
here's the deal, Jay Higgs. You're coming in here acting like you got the moral high ground to like talk to Lucas about not being sad about Tech dying, and like you don't even like
Call me out.
99, bro. You
Call
don't
me
even
out,
like
bro.
99, bro.
That's a good
99
point.
was a true
Yeah,
soldier, and you won't admit that on this show.
bro,
All right.
war
You're hearing it
hero.
here. All right. 99 ain't it, bro. He's not it. All right.
Hottest take under the
Yeah.
sun,
No.
Uh
bro.
oh.
Don't
Hotter
make
This
than
me
is
the sun,
rank
accountability.
my undeserving clones, man. He'd be at the top. All right.
Yeah. Now they're
bro.
never gonna let us into Comic Con because of that hot take, bro.
Yeah, literally. They're gonna
Look,
be
look,
like,
I
yeah,
love
we
his
liked your
heart. All
content.
right.
We liked your content until that one kid said he hated 99. And then we're like, nah,
I
dude, get out of here.
There's a difference between hating something and thinking something deserves doesn't deserve that much clout. Like I get like it's like this what do you call it? It's this noble loss. I get that. But I didn't have any attachment to 99 like I did to Tech. Like come on. 99, I don't know. Man,
I mean,
he must have stole
tears
your
in the
heart so early as a 10-year-old. That must have been it. For me, I was like, oh man, let's get
yeah.
some real fighting instead of this like, oh buddy, like come hang out with us in the clone in the brigade, bro. Like, I don't know.
Dude, all I'm telling you is he made Heavy, He made Fives. He made Echo. He made all those guys the way that they are, bro. We would not have
That's a
Domino
bold
Squad.
take. That is a
No,
bold
it's,
take.
it
No,
is
that
a
is a
solid
real
take,
take.
because
That is a real
without
take.
his talk, they never would have graduated. After they graduate, Heavy never would have sacrificed himself to destroy the outpost. If Heavy doesn't sacrifice himself, Fives and Echo, like,
Probably would have died.
they don't go
probably
anywhere.
would've-
They probably
Yeah.
die. They remember his sacrifice, so it makes them better soldiers. And then when they go back to Camino before they married ARC troopers, they see 99 again, and he's like, "Hey boys, how's it going? You know, I still got Heavy's medal." And so I'm telling you, bro, they would not have been the troopers they were without 99. And you're out here slandering the man.
So
Agreed.
it's not meant to be like slander. It just comes out that way because I'm not in full support of him. But also, I think some of it too is I haven't rewatched those episodes in a long time, and I think that might be some of it. When this original debate came about, then I haven't rewatched Clone Wars start to finish in a long time, and so those are usually the episodes in Clone Wars that I probably don't like. They're not on my rewatch list that I have on a cycle or whatever. And so I probably do need to give it a more fair chance. 99, I get it, but it didn't cling to me like y'all. So I'll have to give it another try. How about that?
There we go.
That's
There
a
we
good answer. That's a good answer.
I like that.
Anyways, we can go back to Bad Batch
Getting-
now.
Yeah, getting back to Bad Batch. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
No, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say this opening scene for me, I thought it was cool. I was engaged. I was like, oh, sick, Bad Batch. We got some type of heist stealth breakout mission
classic.
going on right now.
Classic Bad Batch.
But, like,
mission.
Yeah, that's kind of where it ended for me. Like in this opening scene, before finding out that Crosshair was there, I was just kind of like, oh, cool. This is just classic Bad Batch.
Right.
So I don't know if there was like more things that you guys liked specifically about that part or not, but.
No, that was pretty much it. I was just opening with like, okay, we're actually gonna get like some pretty action-packed missions instead of some of the last filler episodes that we got, which were kind of just slow and boring, So I was happy to see that. Like, yeah, I mean, that's actually that felt super classic Bad Batch, where they're just like, this is a very, very dangerous mission. We're probably doing something on here. Like, we're escaping from the Imperials, right? Classic.
Yeah. I think, if we don't have anything else to say on that, I think just kind of like my overall take, looking at this as a whole and what got me excited watching the trailer was when we had Rex come back and we have, him saying probably to the Bad Batch, to someone, right? He's like, I thought the end of the war would mean like an end to losing more of our brothers, talking about the clones and stuff. And then, kind of just thinking about the other shows throughout this, right? Thinking of this as the final season of the Bad Batch, right? This is the end of the Clone Wars era, right? Like, this is probably going to be the last, maybe not officially the last, but one of the last stories that we're going to get about the Clone Wars, about the clones, the soldiers that we grew up watching and loving in all the shows, right? In Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, all the animated shows. And Dave Filoni has not sent us out without a bang in any of the animated TV shows, right? We think about Star Wars Rebels, the ending, right? Season 4, amazing, right? Left us on a great cliffhanger. Again, it stung. We had to watch Kanan's death, which was heartbreaking. We had to watch Ezra, disappear, and we didn't know what happened to him until recently. And then we go to season 7 of Clone Wars, right? And we see what happens to, the 501st group that goes with Rex and Ahsoka. And that was heartbreaking to see Order 66 and all of them die, like Jesse, and just to see the fall of the Republic. So can we really expect anything different from Filoni in the end of the Bad Batch? In my opinion, I don't think so. I think we're gearing up for some pretty big heartbreak. And again, I think that's kind of prefaced by bringing Rex into the show and having him be like, you know what? Like, I thought the Clone Wars was going to be the end of like losing our clones, losing our brothers. But I think we're going to see a lot more loss in this TV show before it's over.
Well, speaking of Rex, I think one of the best parts of season 2 was the episode towards the end of season 2 where Rex is leading all the clones that have stayed alive, all the rogue clones.
Yeah.
And I think we're obviously still on the cliffhanger for Cody, and I think we're gonna get that resolved with his arc, and we're gonna figure out what happened to him. And obviously, I think he's teamed up with Rex. I mean, it's that simple. He left the Empire the second he found out Rex was, chilling. Um, but I think that we're gonna see. I mean, there's already in the trailer. There's Wolf, right? We're probably gonna get some content of how
Mhm.
Wolf became Rex's guy on that off planet in season 2 of Rebels and that kind of stuff. So I think it's gonna expand a little bit because it's gonna be one of the last things of the Clone Wars. It's gonna expand out past the Bad Batch, which is what everyone wants. Like we all want that.
Yeah.
Um, I have grown to love the story of the Bad Batch, like their tight knit team, way more in the last couple months than I did originally. And I think I'm excited to see how they turn out, but also where are they leaving us with everything too? Because that is, I mean, I've heard a rumor this is the last animated show they're doing in this form of animation. I've heard that rumor, and it's kind of scary to me. But if that's it, then like this has got to be crazy,
Send it
right?
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think kind of going along a similar vein, right? You talked about Wolf being in the show. Again, in terms of wrapping up this storyline and kind of teeing up Star Wars Rebels, other projects from Star Wars as well. We saw Wolf in the trailer. In that portion of the trailer, he's standing next to a clone commando. So again,
He's
that
working
could
with
be,
them.
yeah, that maybe either Wolf is with the Empire currently, right? Maybe that's where he's at. Maybe, but that clone commando could also be Gregor as well.
That's true.
So he doesn't have, right, he doesn't
Doesn't
have
look like
Gregor's
the
armor.
markings. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have the markings, but again, if Gregor's loyal to the Empire, maybe they give him that new suit of armor, right? So maybe we see Gregor in the show. There's a quick flash where we see Hauser. Hauser was the clone who was on Ryloth in season 1 of Bad Batch, right? And so again, like you're saying, in terms of bringing the clones together, seeing where they're left off, is Rex leading some type of faction together with the Bad Batch for some big grand finale? Or, is it like, okay, in the end, they all go their separate ways? Or do multiple people die in the end and then they still go their separate ways, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of character development. And that's not even considering probably the biggest reveal, which was at the end of the trailer with that character who they,
Jason loves
who they showed.
and is in
Yeah.
love with.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
That was pretty big for me. It was just seeing my boy Rex, seeing the clones, and I agree, couldn't agree more. It will be interesting to see where they leave everyone by the end of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was probably the kind of going along with what you guys have been saying. Just that's probably been the biggest thing for me in this trailer was the amount of like people that we see along the Bad Batch, right? Like that have showed up alongside the Bad Batch. We see a clip of Palpatine walking with his Praetorian guards, right? The Red Guards, and that's crazy because I'm hoping that we see a little bit more of him and how he kind of goes to dissolve the clones and kind of create his stormtroopers, right? Create the
Lucas,
stormtrooper era.
everything the Emperor has been in Bad Batch has been absolute fire. Like it has been
Absolutely.
perfect. They have perfected
Absolutely.
his like everything he's done.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why every single time I've never been a Palpatine fan when I was younger. So I'm like, this is just some old dude who gets wrecked by Vader and Luke in the end, right? It's like never been that kind of thing. But as like I got older and I'm watching like the Clone Wars stuff and kind of seeing like Clone Wars and Rebels and kind of seeing his manipulation and all he went through to kind of like basically play the two sides of the war makes me just more excited to see what content he is. He's like, I can care less seeing him fight, right? I mean, it was so cool seeing him fight in Clone Wars against Maul and Savage and absolutely decimating them, right? Like he walks into the room and he's already holding up two of Maul's guards like up against like kills them like up against the wall, right? With the Force. He's just so powerful, but yet he's not a fighting person. He's more of just like an intellectual. He's like, I'm gonna fight with my mind. I'm gonna manipulate. I'm gonna do all this stuff, and I'm excited to see kind of how he molds that into the the empire that we see in the original trilogy, right? Because it starts off as him like Order 66, and he kind of like that's the initiation of his plan. But then it's like, how is he molding that to being like the empire that we see in the original trilogy, where it's literally taken over almost all of the planets in the galaxy, right? And it's like this man must have some sort of plan in place to kind of like solidify that, and that's what I'm excited for, right? And it was cool to see. I mean, we saw kind of that reminded me, Jake, that like in season 2 we did get to see Gregor and kind of his escape, right? We got to kind of see him be defiant against the new clones coming up, and that was super cool because we saw Rex and how he was able to kind of break free of that and
Mhm.
break free of like the Empire's hold, and then we get to see Gregor break free of the hold, and now last season it's only fitting that we get to see how Wolf breaks free the from the hold of the Empire, right? Which unfortunately, this now that you're saying that we're going to see a lot of loss, unfortunately, we don't see Cody in the end, right? We don't see Cody with the clones and rebels, and so that's my hunch is that something's going to happen to him. He's going to have probably a noble sacrifice as well, unfortunately, but I think it's going to be something that's going to set it off right. It's going to be exciting. So yeah, the character reveals. I mean, we saw one that we were like, okay, we don't really care about, right? Fennec Shand kind of popped in there for a second. But then
Bro,
we
I'm
see
not gonna
Cad
sit here
Bane.
for this Book of Boba Fett slander, bro. Chill.
Yeah,
You will stay seated for that slander.
yeah,
As I stay seated, bro.
yeah. But then we see Cad Bane's silhouette, show up a little bit. So it's gonna be excited to see like how he kind of fits into the story a little bit more, other than
Mhm.
just trying to kidnap Omega or something.
Omega. I think one
Omega.
thing, going back to what you were saying, Lucas, about Palpatine, kind of on a different thought process. Every time I see Palpatine with the Kaminoans or the Kaminoans, however you want to pronounce it, they like I can't help but feel like they're trying to connect the like Empire era with the sequels. And stay with me here, maybe this is a hot take, but I think in the Mandalorian there was a lot that happened on the topic of cloning, right? Something about cloning. They're trying to figure out how to take the Force from like Grogu, of like highly Force sensitive being, and transfer that into cloning other people and giving them like Force abilities or something, right? That like it wasn't a theme that was like widely explored in the Mandalorian, but there were a few episodes where you're like, where are they going with
What are
this?
they
You
doing with
know,
this?
and again, that's kind of the vibe that I got from Palpatine in this trailer when he's walking with his guards. He's with Nala Se and some of the other Kaminoan scientists and stuff. Is he's like, the things that we're doing are of like the utmost importance to like the security and to like preserving the empire, right? And so where my mind goes is maybe this is Dave Filoni and Star Wars way of connecting us to the sequels and filling in probably like the worst storytelling that we've seen in 7, 8, and 9, right? Of oh no, Palpatine returned, right? And so
Yeah,
now it's like, okay, maybe this is laying the groundwork for that, right? Maybe the Bad Batch is taking these ideas of cloning and kind of, creating different versions of the Emperor so that he can live forever and carry his empire on into the future. And maybe that's where they're going with, kidnapping Omega, doing those experiments on the clones, like involving the Kaminoans like so heavily into their research. And that's kind of just like pushing us towards that sequel era where, Palpatine somehow came back. There were clones. Rey is somehow related to Palpatine. I don't know. That's kind of the way that my mind goes. I don't know if you guys kind of had similar thoughts to that, or if you thought about that, or what your thoughts are in regards
Bro,
to that.
if I see Rey in animated Clone Wars, bro, just kidding. She'd probably be too young anyways. It doesn't fit the timeline.
yeah, she's
That
Way too
might
young.
blow up
like
the
Yeah.
fan base.
yeah,
Like
she's
that
like a
might blow up the
yeah.
fan base like all time. Like I'd actually never
Well,
thought about that really. So
I didn't either. I think that's a great point because if you like, that was probably Disney's biggest mistake, right? Is having all these plot points in the sequels that led to nowhere. And then the smartest move that they've made since is putting Dave Filoni as chief content creator, right? And having him like kind of be like, hey, sorry we messed up on the sequels, but do what you do best in storytelling and try to fix those plot holes. Which unfortunately, like all we want to do is see the sequels absolved and kind of like
Just
removed
erase
from the
them, make
timeline.
new ones. Yeah.
Yeah, right, and kind of like and make new ones. I mean, that could be a hot topic for some people, but it just shows the kind of like there weren't a lot of fans that were really into the storytelling of it, and Dave Filoni's doing what he does best in connecting and weaving these stories that kind of like, oh, I remember back in Clone Wars season 2 episode this when this happened, and it's connecting with something here right now, right?
Hmm. So yeah,
So
I don't know. Food for thought. If it happens,
Well,
you
and
heard it here
let's
first.
well, and let's continue that, but twist it to more of instead of like the sequels chatter about it, switch to the Bad Batch side of it. Like Hemlock has just been a dog since we've met him. He's got some
Mhm.
overarching plot that he's working on with the Emperor. It is something related to cloning, clearly. And at the end of season 2, you find out that Omega's got a sister or whatever that's working directly with Hemlock. I'm very curious to see what strings Omega is able to pull while she's captured to connect with Crosshair during these experiments and things. Because in the trailer it says like Omega's going to be the one taking the fault if you can't get the job done. That's what Hemlock says to the Kaminoans. To Nala say. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how Omega in the last 2 seasons has been able to avoid anything injury related to what she's been able to stay alive and survive with death all around her. And I'm curious to see how she's able to avoid anything too serious with cloning and eventually, I hope so, team up with Crosshair after he pulls his head out and decides that he's done with everything that he's done in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of diverting a little bit. One thing we didn't talk about was that new figure, that new like commander figure that we see in the show, who's like in all black armor, who has a different helmet
yeah.
other than like rather than any of the other.
Hashtag tech lives, bro.
Yeah,
no, bro,
right?
it's
There's
not
no
tech.
way. There's no way they capture his body, keep him alive, and Winter Soldier him, bro. There's no way.
Bro, you can't tell me Echo is supposed to still be alive, but here we are.
Yeah, that's true. I think,
point.
yeah, no, he was an interesting one. Again, I thought maybe they Winter Soldier him. I think that's a good way of putting it, Lucas, right? Like it could be tech, but I just don't think, again, minus Echo and a couple other characters, like resurrecting characters isn't really like the Star Wars way. They'll come back as a forced ghost, but like they're not gonna bring a lot of people back to life. And one kind of some of the things I was reading online about it and in like my own research, we kind of already got a look at a similar character to this. I can't remember if it was in season 1 or season 2, but there was like a clone assassin that went after Senator Chuchi, and he was like dressed very similarly to this character. As well, when I was watching the trailer, I was watching it with subtitles, and they had a voice for a character. I think his tag was CX1, maybe.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So again, maybe that's his clone tag or something. I
what
think
does CX stand for?
It's probably like clone assassin or something.
Yeah,
Because
it
CT
could be.
is clone trooper, CC is clone commander. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what CX stands for, but again, yeah, maybe he could be a really big character in the show. I think as well, Star Wars could pull another Merrick on us, like from Ahsoka, right? We thought that maybe this is Cal Kestis, or maybe this is some other Inquisitor, right? Like maybe it's something like that, and then it was just like, oh no, it's just some night sister magic. I could see him either being a big character to kind of push the plot along for the show. Maybe it's someone like Tech, maybe it's some other reveal, or at the end of the day, it could just be some other random assassin clone, right? Who's in charge of leading these guys to take down the batch. I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything for CX1, so I'm wondering if maybe that's just a post Republic designation that they gave him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, season 1 of Bad Batch really, I thought was a lot of development for Hunter, trying to lead the squad through their new problems and their new lifestyle. Especially like him having to part ways with Crosshair mentally. I feel like he had the hardest time figuring that out over, Echo, Tech, and Wrecker. They kind of just follow him. But season two, I felt like was way more tech oriented. So I'm very interested to see. Sorry, season two is a lot of tech, but also Crosshair. I think season three is going to be a lot of Echo. I think that's who's going to be the most of all of it. I think they're all going to get it. But because we've been talking so much about Rex and Cody and Wolf, Echo is by far the most related to them of the Bad Batch. He left Bad Batch in season two, right, to go be with them for a little while. And so I think it wouldn't shock me if we get the most Echo development, but also I think they obviously have to close out the storylines for all of Bad Batch. So that's my thoughts on that. I'd love to hear if you guys have anything on that.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
a really interesting idea.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, right? Echo already having so much backstory from Clone Wars, right? He has kind of been reborn as kind of like a different Echo, right? He's not the same exact guy that he was back when him and Fives became ARC troopers, right? But I could see that. I mean, there's some moments in the trailer that he's seems like he's kind of taking a central role, but again, I think there's going to be a lot of attention on. I'm hoping that there's not a lot of attention on Omega, but I think to bring her into the show and then still leave us kind of uncertain to like her role within the Bad Batch and within the show, I think they're going to probably have to focus on her a lot as well. But again, I think it would be interesting to see more character because who doesn't love Echo, right? Like one of our we had him in Domino Squad, we have him in the 501st.
501st,
like,
bro.
I'd always be happy to see more Echo. So
well, and it makes you think too a little bit because like if we haven't talked about the ending part of the trailer yet, we can do that next. But like if they're gonna do a flashback, like it only makes sense that like there might be an Echo flashback or something that we haven't seen about Echo. But it could be all the Bad Batch together. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the topic of characters, I think the biggest reveal, right, quote unquote reveal from the trailer was the last character who they ended it with, right, which was Ventress, and that was a crazy reveal, actually. And again, I feel like Star Wars has this way of like, you're thinking about a million things, and the person that I was not thinking about, who is very much still alive and has this kind of open-ended. I mean, obviously we have the books and stuff with Quinlan Voss and Asajj Ventress and all of that, right? But she's very much alive during this era. And it's like, what's she up to, right? Has she been bounty hunting? Is she like kind of, off doing her own missions? Is she trying to like search for greater meaning within the universe? And the reveal that we got her with, she's back with a yellow lightsaber, right? So again, is she kind of moving back towards the light side a little bit and kind of moving into sort of a gray Jedi role? With that background with the Jedi and the background with the Sith, kind of moving to a space in the middle. I'd love to hear kind of you guys' thoughts on where you see her entering the show, if you see her being a central character, or if it's kind of just some more kind of cameo fan service.
I mean, always been a fan of yellow lightsabers, my thing. But I mean, yeah, Ventress is probably one of the only people that we see that kind of have this like roller coaster effect, right? Where she is a Jedi, then turns Sith, and then goes neutral, but is definitely not a Jedi, right? But then she helps Ahsoka, and doesn't make her a Jedi, but it makes her kind of like more far away from the Sith side, right? And then she just disappears. And then from at least in the Clone Wars story, we see a little more in the Dark Disciple of what she's up to. But they retconned a little bit of her end in the Dark Disciple to kind of include her into Bad Batch, which I'm excited to see because I'm always like, as much as I love the clones and love their story and everything, for me, Star Wars is Jedi. It's the Force. It's all that cool stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm all about like having, and I'm like, we saw Gunji in season 2, right? We saw Kanan in season 1. So it's like we have these little interactions with Jedi, but I'm wondering if Asajj is going to play a bigger role, if she's going to be like a Cad Bane in that sense, where she just shows up for like an episode or two and then just disappears, right? I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that she does play a big role and maybe helps liberate some of the clones and get them away, or helps Bad Batch with in a way. I would want to see her play a big role, but I'm excited to. I was really really pumped to see her kind of in the way and like come back and kind of be a different Asajj Ventress than we're used to.
Yeah, I'm glad the director came out and said that Ventress is not going to take away from anything that happened in Dark Disciple. It's one of like the 3 or 4 Star Wars books that are canon that I've read, and it's a really good one. Jake already brought up the whole Quinlan thing. There's a chance we see Quinlan in this show. I just looked it up. Ventress, the last time you see Ventress in Clone Wars is the year 20 BBY, and Bad Batch takes place 18 BBY. I don't know what time Dark Disciple takes place, but it's shortly after the Clone Wars because Dooku is still alive. That's like 90% of the plot. But doesn't make tons of sense if Revenge of the Sith, Dooku dies, and Bad Batch happens right at that time, right? It's like all in Revenge of the Sith. So I think what they're gonna do, if everything aligns with Dark Disciple, it's gonna be very similar to the season 7 finale arc of Clone Wars, where we watch Ahsoka do this, we watch Ahsoka go to Mandalore, and all of a sudden Dooku's been killed. And it's like, oh whoa, like Clone Wars jumps into Revenge of the Sith. It's not just everything before Revenge of the Sith. And so I think there's going to be some, not necessarily a flashback, but there's going to be some time jumping. Maybe they reminisce on a battle or a past engagement with her, and they hear about her again, or they team up with her, and it's I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't, but if it's going to align with the book, then that eased my conscience completely, and I was like, okay, good. Like this is not going to piss off this fan base like it could have. And we all love Ventress. I mean, I personally think she's one of the best characters of Clone Wars. She had some of the most ups and downs of all the characters. Obviously, Ahsoka is going to be number 1, but it was so cool to see Ventress and Ahsoka team up in season 5. And then she's the reason I read Dark Disciple. I wanted to know what happened to her. And so the fact that we get to see her again in her more adult form, it's like almost like an Ahsoka, right? Purified crystals, new resolve, new purpose, trying to find herself. This Ventress is I found myself. I know where my destiny is. I know who I love and what I want to do with my life, because that was the whole point of Ventress. Once she gets exiled by Dooku, it's like, what the heck is she supposed to do? So she goes to the Night Sisters and tries to figure it out through there, and ends up just being on the run and becomes a bounty hunter. And I think Dark Disciple for sure, with Quinlan, bringing her to be more than just a bounty hunter. And I think this show can help really seal off her character. There was a huge rumor that she was going to be in Resistance, but Dave Filoni ultimately decided that wouldn't be a good idea, because Resistance happens 50 years after Bad Batch and Revenge of the Sith, and so he'd have to figure out, what did she do for 50 years, Whereas Bad Batch is within the time frame. It's within a decade. It's within 2 years of Revenge of the Sith and season 7 of Clone Wars. So yeah, I think it's a smarter move, and I'm interested to see how they mesh it all together. Because the Bad Batch honestly have had encounters with so many different people. So we started off the first episode of the first season with Kanan and Deva Balaba, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah. When it's cool you bring that up. I haven't thought a ton about the kind of relationship, or like even like inverse relationship that Ahsoka and Ventress have, right? You have obviously both of them kind of growing and learning, changing with their respective masters, right? You have Ahsoka with Anakin and Ventress with Dooku, right? And then as well, kind of in the end, Ahsoka by choice and Ventress kind of not by Count Dooku's choice, right? They both kind of get kicked out of their respective orders, right? So Ahsoka chooses to leave the Jedi Order. Ventress chooses to leave. Even if they do come back, Ventress going back to the Night Sisters, they all get killed by the Separatists and by Grievous, right? And then you have Ahsoka and all the Jedi get killed by the clones, right? So again, you have these very similar characters that are kind of walking different paths, but they're the same path, right? And so it will be cool to kind of get more storyline to that character that we've seen so much about. And again, I kind of echo what Lucas said in the sense of like, it would be cool. Obviously, we're not watching the Bad Batch for Ventress. We're watching the Bad Batch for the Bad Batch. But it would be cool for them to involve her character in a way that highlights what we've wanted to see with her progression as a character, and also highlights the Bad Batch and their loyalty to their team and to what was the Republic, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we kind of talked about it all. We haven't. I brought up a second about Omega and Crosshair. I don't think there's tons to talk about there. But yeah, I unfortunately / fortunately, we have Bad Batch, Demon Slayer, and Avatar all coming out literally the same weekend. Not sure how they decided that was a good idea, but Bad Batch every Wednesday, Avatar all binging, and Demon Slayer's a movie. So it's an exciting month coming up.
Super pumped to see it all.
All right, y'all. Catch us on that next one.